Welcome back to Orthodox Family Life. Today we have our special guest, Cyprian, formerly from the Royal Path. But welcome to the show, Cyprian.
Thank you for having me.
I'm pretty excited about this conversation, but I'm a little scatterbrained in everything that's been going on for a few
Me
days,
too.
and
Me too.
and looking at all your old interviews, which have so much interesting ideas to chew on. So I don't even know how to introduce you. So can you maybe just give my audience a little introduction of who you are, maybe some of the things you talk about?
Oh man, I've been trying to figure that out myself lately, haven't I? Uh, I'm not sure. I know that I am a father and a husband and an Orthodox Christian, and that I am working hard as I possibly can and struggling to allow God to manifest His will through me.
So some of the things you talk about, you talk about a very broad array of subjects, but one of the things I've heard you talk about that I want to discuss today is this idea of the devouring mother archetype and the blessed mother
Mhm,
archetype. And
mhm,
obviously there's a lot of conversation going on around men and women. And
mhm,
my feeling is that often the women kind of get mentioned, and then we dive really deep into masculinity and what that means and everything. So I want to do the
mm.
same thing for women today. Let's dive really deep into what are these archetypes? Where do they come from? Why should Orthodox Christians care? And then maybe fleshing out some examples of this and how it impacts us. It's a lot to start with. Sorry, but what
Well,
are these?
maybe we start with your last question, because I think that that's the most important, especially given how you sort of introduced that. Because I think you're really identifying maybe a much larger blind spot, and that is, why should Orthodox people care? I think the fact that we even have to ask that question is like, in some ways, it's profoundly disturbing if you're Orthodox that you would ask that. Um, I think if you ask that to a monk on Athos, that he would probably laugh, right? Because his focus is on the Panagia. That's the church is she. When we refer to the church, we
Mhm,
say she. Um, the Mother of God is the saint of saints. Uh, our understanding of Israel, if we are Israel, that the purpose
mhm.
for the project of Israel is so that a teenage girl could say yes. Why should so if we're asking a question, why
Well,
should why should an Orthodox person be uh almost like, we should actually be asking, why should we not be hyper focused on the divine feminine, or how could we not be and
mm,
still be Orthodox? Because you can't. There is no orthodoxy without the Mother of God.
of course,
So
of
there
course. I
is
think what
no
I'm,
orthodoxy without the divine mother. And I'm not
yeah.
saying this to you, right? I don't think that the question that you asked, you described a reality of something that's happening in the broader conversation of, especially I think, newly Orthodox people, for many of them in the West, right?
Yes, and I think there's a ton of things in the world that are very obvious that I find myself having to say, like, "Don't do mushrooms and don't give your kid a phone."
Right.
So
Sure.
like, I mean, I thought we were gonna talk about, I don't mean you, but I just in my channel, I thought we were gonna talk about really deep things, and those are the things I'm realizing, oh, these things actually have to be said. So
Yes.
so that's why I'm asking.
No,
Sorry.
no, I think it's no, no, no. I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful, and I think it's hyper important. And um, you know, in some ways, I had a little bit of a shortcut to this, because my life when I was, let's say, playing for the other team, right? I was
Mhm.
my background before this, and it's why, you know, Father Turbo Qualls, who's my baptizing priest and who's my spiritual father, said, "You're going to be Saint Cyprian of Antioch," which is pretty scandalous, to say that. I was looking for like Saint Zosibus, who was there with Saint Mary of Egypt, which is again a focus on the
It
feminine,
is. It is.
right? But
Yeah.
this is like, So for me, it was a little bit of a shortcut, because if people know my past, when I was, let's say, playing for the other team and in the occult, it was hyper focused on the divine feminine.
Mhm.
Like that was my life, and much of the occult is the divine feminine. The ayahuasca and Gaia worship and Ishtar and all of these things, right? So the mother goddess cult, if you want to go back, this is the
Mhm.
most ancient animistic cult, right? It's all about the mother goddess, and those are demons,
Right.
right? So those are demons.
Mhm.
Kali would be another example, right? And so now we can start to get into this devouring mother, divine mother sort of situation. So, the divine feminine is a part of reality. And just as with all things in Orthodoxy, you will find their inversion on the other team, right? On the occult side, on the demonic side.
Mhm.
You will find all of the tools, all of the things, and all of the concepts. And I do very much like this idea of, and this was something that Father Turbo had told me as well, was that he really emphasized to me that, like, no, you're going to understand that you're now playing for the. Many people are not actually playing on the field, right? Many people are just trying to get through the kind of turmoil
Mhm.
and the consequences of spiritual warfare, right? Just like any
Yeah.
warfare, most people are not soldiers. They're civilians, and yes, their house gets bombed, and yes, they get kidnapped, and yes, they might get pressed into doing something, and their children taken away, and these sorts of things, just like in any warfare. But 99.9% of the people in Ukraine are not fighting.
Right.
Right? 99.9% of the people in Israel are not actively engaged in hostilities, and certainly not Iran. And this is true of any war. And it's as above, so below, right? So it's true of on earth as it is in heaven. It's true of spiritual warfare that we have here now. And so, my background was I was fighting on the field for the other side. And I switched sides. Right? So I switched kings. And it's one thing to be a civilian, but it's quite another to it is quite another to be a deserter. Well, it's one thing to be a deserter. It's
Mm.
another thing to be a deserter and pick up a weapon on the other side. And the punishment for the people who do that, and the way that you will be attacked when you do that, is obviously going to be that's the worst thing that you could do, right? So this is true in warfare. It's true in everything. And so I say this to give a background of the fact that, like, the place that we'll be speaking from and what people should understand. And I think one of the things that makes it difficult, as we were speaking even before, I think one of the things that makes it difficult when we start to talk about these topics is that there is often a kind of a dichotomy that people make that is a false dichotomy, right? So if I start to have a conversation about the devouring mother, and I use the archetype of the Hindu god Kali as an example, I think that there's often a temptation for many Orthodox people to, like, turn it off at that point, right? To turn their mind off. Because they're like, oh, he's talking about something from another religion, and, like,
Mhm.
that religion is not true. And it's like, no, 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 no. Or let's say that religion is not true, because truth is a person. It is a
Mhm.
lie. It is a deception, right? But it's
Right.
like that religion is talking about gods that don't exist. I think this is something that's very much in the Protestant kind of ethos, if you
Mhm.
come from a Protestant background, right? Is that it's like, oh no, those gods don't exist, so I can kind of ignore this. This is false. But that's not true. That's not true at all. Because if that was true, Orthodox fathers now wouldn't be saying don't do yoga,
Right.
right? They're not
Mhm.
saying don't do yoga because, well, it's just maybe it's not good for you, and maybe you're not really Orthodox. They're saying don't do yoga because those gods are real, small g gods. They're
Mhm.
real, and you will be interacting with them in a real way if you do yoga. right? So this was one of the things that was helped. I'm just trying to set the stage here, so just
Yeah,
bear
that's
with me a
great.
little bit.
No, it's great. It's
Okay,
perfect.
I'm just trying to set the stage. Okay, this is one of the reasons why, for me, I didn't have to fundamentally abandon my worldview of what reality was, moving from the occult to orthodoxy, and neither did Cyprian of Antioch,
Mhm.
which is appropriate, right? Like he asked to be baptized the first day that he came in, because he was attacked by the demon that he had summoned, and he killed it with he made it go away. It was choking him to death, and he made it go away with the sign of the cross, which he had never done
Right.
before, but he saw Justina do,
Right.
right?
His story, by the way, is on
And
my
then
channel, and the whole thing where people can listen to it.
it's
It's
incredible.
phenomenal. Yeah.
So I won't even go into it deeper because you did that. Please go listen,
Yeah.
right? So it is, I think it's an important, his among many others, obviously, but it is an important indication that there is a foundational level of spiritual reality
Mhm.
that orthodoxy recognizes. Now, we choose not to focus on talking too much about the demons and their specifics and what they do and how they are, right? It's like Father Turbo has said to me, see without looking, right? So see, but don't dig into it. Don't go spend time with them. Don't go sit down and interrogate them. There's nothing there for
Mhm.
you. And the longer you talk to them, the more they will deceive you. The more you think about them, the more chance there is that you might give them rights, right?
Right.
But I think, what we're going to talk about today, hopefully, is that we can talk about this basis of reality that is the divine feminine, so that we can, I think, better appreciate the mother of God, because that's ultimately what those experiences gave to me, is to see the sort of false promise of the inverted divine feminine as opposed to the true fulfilled promise and continued gifts that the mother of God offers as the truth of the divine feminine. So that's the answer to your last
Okay.
one of why should Orthodox people care.
Well, I think it's a good one to start with because, if I hear some Orthodox person start using language that is maybe unfamiliar to the, the general population, the church, you start going, okay, wait a second, what is he talking about here? But, I've heard you enough to know that you understand that you're just using a new language to describe it, or maybe bringing something back from long ago. But it's really important because we have so many people coming from the occult now. So thank God for
Yeah.
that. So where to go from here? I'm going to let you guide this because I'm not sure where you want to jump in next. It's a big topic.
Okay. Well, I'm you're the one who knows what's most interesting to you. I mean, we're talking about the devour. What is it? Maybe you can help me, and then that'll help to guide us.
S- So
What
what?
sort of sparked the interest for you about the devouring mother to even want to have this conversation?
Yeah, so I do a lot on my channel with it's for Orthodox women and families, and
Mhm.
so I try to read the lives of the saints for women saints and families, um, and then have different dialogues about parenting and other issues about women. And I noticed that um, every time there was a video put out by an Orthodox person about the gender issues going on, they would usually
Mhm.
say, "Oh, women, their issue is feminism," and then spend the entire rest of the video talking about men in great detail. And I thought, well, I know feminism is an issue. I'm not arguing that, but there's a lot more to this, right? And I found very few
Mhm.
men seem to really understand how women think about the world, and most women don't. I feel like women need a model, and they haven't been given a model for decades of what it even means to be a woman. And so their whole
Mhm.
life is set up in a way from elementary school, middle school, high school. I can point to several things at each of these levels to by the time they get through college, of course they're a leftist feminist because the whole system
Mhm.
was set up to create that in multiple ways.
Mhm.
And I know from my own life that uh, when I was starting to be a wife and a mother, I was looking for those models. And the
Mhm.
only place I found it was the Panagia, the female
Mhm.
saints, the female
Mhm.
monastics, and eventually literature. Jane Eyre being my favorite of the female heroine. So
Mhm.
that's what kind of started me down this road. I just think we need to talk about it more. Like there's more going on with women than just feminism.
Wow, is that not the understatement of
It's on my obvious things list, right? Thank you for saying that because I just started to feel like maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's our only issue,
Oh,
and I'm just a dork over here. I don't know, but
I mean, it's what I find interesting is that, and I have seen these conversations. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time in that particular, uh, let's say, segment of the orthosphere.
mhm.
It was one reason that I like left Twitter a while ago, and uh, I actually completely deleted my Twitter account yesterday. All my tweet history of, I don't know, decade and a half, all of that. I just completely deleted it, and it was because, I mean, basically because the replies that I was getting back was from that segment of the orthosphere, and it was so. I mean, I'll just say it, just so demonic that I didn't, and I think it has gone from misguided to demonic. Like, and I'm not
I've
saying everybody.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty concerning stuff, but again, I don't want to focus on the men today. Cyprian, I want to dive
Well,
into the,
well, I,
you
it's
know,
well. Here's the thing: there's not, and I think again that's the dichotomy, right?
yeah,
The dichotomy
we have to talk
is
about
that
both.
there is some means of separating woman from man.
Hmm.
There is not. The problem that we have is that we're trying to make the separation. That was the direction I was going. That the separation itself is something completely of the world and is completely not of Christ.
Okay, so explain that. What do you mean?
Yes, 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 of course. Well, there is no. Well, look, let's go to the creed. Let's go to the creed, right? The things that we believe, right? That Jesus Christ was made incarnate of the Holy Spirit and the Virgin Mary. Of the Holy Spirit and the Virgin Mary, he was made incarnate. There is no incarnation without the Mother of God.
Hmm.
So there is no separation. If our Lord made flesh, his flesh is her flesh. He does not have any other flesh. He does not have, from a biological standpoint,
Hmm.
he does not have any other chromosomes. He does not have any other genetics. Right? If we were to go on the scientific and crude, you would say he is a clone. He is a
Right.
genetic clone of a woman. There is no separation between, and it's being shown to us. There is no separation between man and woman. But even in Genesis, there is no separation between man and woman. Woman is a clone. If they are the new Adam and the new Eve. Why? Because they are of one flesh. One flesh. We are of one flesh. There is no difference between man and woman. If we try to make there be a difference, if we try to make there be a dichotomy, then we've missed it. Right? So, and this is what I'm saying is that trying to make that separation is a symptom, right, of something that leads you away from life. It leads you away from life. And so all of these things, the divine feminine, the blessed mother, the tyrant, the wise king, they are not separated. They are not separated from each other. They cannot and do not exist separate from each other in a vacuum. They are all part of the same fabric of reality. They are all part of the same organism.
Yeah, to be clear, I think you're saying they're distinct, but they're inseparable because they're in relationship and from the other. because I don't want people to confuse that with like transgenderism or something where you're saying gender or sex or whatever doesn't exist. That confusion is not what you're talking about. You're talking about
Oh, I'm certainly not saying that.
yeah, I just want to make sure people know that.
Yeah.
This is the internet. I
When
want to
I'm
make sure.
so we could just go, if I'm going to say something like that, I will always say it explicitly. You're not going to get anything implicit from me. What comes out of my mouth is what I'm saying.
Okay, good.
I'm working real hard at that, right? What comes out of my mouth is what I'm saying. But I do want to say that there is, in the same way that my hand is distinct from my foot, but that distinction is a wholly intellectual distinction.
Right.
And I can stop making that distinction as soon as I say the word my body. I've just now ceased to make a dichotomy between my hand and my foot by saying my body. Right? And when I say human being, I've ceased to make the dichotomy between body and spirit, body and soul. Because we're both. We're both. Right? So we can make the dichotomy because we're gonna talk about it, right? And we're gonna talk about these archetypes. We're gonna talk about the devouring mother. But this is one of the things. I don't want to fall into the temptation, because I think then we'll miss something. I don't want to fall into the temptation to say, well, let's just talk about the female side. Because you can't understand the female side without the male side. Or for us to say, by the same token, the flip, well, let's just, feminism is a women's problem. Let's talk about the issues that men have.
Right.
How? Well,
right.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. If I'm going to be in the church and I'm going to be a man in the church, right? I'm going to have one of two things. I'm either going to have I should have both. But if I'm going to be a monastic as a man, I'm going to have a very important relationship with the Theotokos.
Mm-hmm.
Very important relationship. She's going to be like my deepest daily relationship. You talk to the monks on Athos, she's the deepest daily relationship that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like, wait, let's just talk about the men. What are you talking about? For me to be a man right now is about my relationship with her. Outside of the relationship with her, there is no Athos. There is no Athos. They are not there outside of her. Right? So we can't make that distinction. And but again, the reverse is true.
Mm-hmm.
Without her, there is no incarnation. So we can't just say, let's not talk about the women. Let's not, because for whether you're man or woman, she is, when the woman from the crowd calls out and says, blessed is the womb that bore you and the breast that nurse you. And he says, no, blessed are those that hear the word of God and keep it. Well, he's talking about her.
Right. It's often misunderstood, but he is actually referring to his mother.
He's talking about her. He's saying, no, it's not that she bore me. He's taking it back further.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she even bore me, anybody could bear a child. The fact that she heard the word of God, that she would bear me and she kept it, that's what makes her blessed. Right? So even he is saying there's no separation.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying there's no separation. If I am the word, there's no separation of word. It's just a piece. It's a conduit. Any dichotomy is something that we're like making. Right? And so then that gets us to what we see then we see that there is this male and there is this female. There is not the dichotomy between the two. And just like with a body, and there not being a dichotomy between my hand and my foot, right? Well, if I get a carcinoma or a melanoma on my hand and I let it fester, that cancer to fester, my foot is going to die too.
Right.
Where's your dichotomy? There's no dichotomy. The foot can't just be like, well, Hand's got cancer. Not gonna hurt me.
Yeah, but you hear a lot
I'm
of
good. That's the
conversations that
hand.
sound this way, online, right? You hear,
Yes, you do.
yeah,
Yes,
like,
you do.
the hand over there's got a
Yes,
problem.
you do.
You know?
Man, we gotta, that hand, they gotta deal with their own thing. That ain't nothing about me.
Right.
That ain't nothing about me. And it's like, no, that's your death too.
It's like talking about yourself as a wife without the context of your husband, right?
Yeah.
That's
How can you
how
be a
can
wife
you?
without a husband?
Yeah.
How can you be a husband without a wife? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And to say that you're going to have a conversation about being a man, and part of that is being a husband, and that it somehow is going to be divorced, pun intended, from a discussion about your wife, a deep discussion about your wife. Like,
Yeah.
actually, I don't even need to talk about being a husband. Like, the conversation about me being a husband really should be entirely a conversation about my wife, because my husbandness is my relationship to my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Husband is just a relationship. The let's say I'm the subject, that's the object of the relationship, and then there's a relationship in the middle. Right? How can I, why am I talking about the relationship? Why am I talking about that? There's the subject, there's the object. Let's talk about the object, because then the relationship exposes itself.
Right.
Right? So this is, now we can get into like the value of these archetypes. I hope you're not hearing, they're going crazy in the jungle. Are you hearing crazy stuff in the
No.
background here? No. Okay,
No, I'm not.
wonderful. Okay, wonderful.
Because I wouldn't know how to edit
Okay,
that out either.
Okay, so I think that that's a good place. Now we've set the stage for why this conversation will be important to everyone. Right? And why it is not a, if we're going to have a conversation about the divine feminine and about this concept of the devouring mother and the blessed mother, why it is not also separated from a conversation of the divine masculine.
Okay.
Right? So, okay. Shall we go a little bit about the devouring mother concept?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what is the devouring mother? What is that?
Okay. So if we're going to make these, we're going to make these dichotomies not because they're real, but because or they're real, right? But because, yes, in order to understand my body, I'm going to have to talk about, well, what's the difference between my foot and my hand? They have a lot of things similar, but they're different in ways, and they do different things, and that contribute to the health and well-being of my body, and they are connected to each other and related to each other, and they are all a part of me. And so I think that example that I gave about like the cancer, I think that that's very helpful as we start to talk about what is the difference between, for instance, the devouring mother and the blessed mother. And for me, the easiest way to understand a lot of this was one of the priests who has randomly showed up here on our little island of Saipan, a wonderful priest by the name of Father Kirill Skarbol. He's based in Taiwan, a Russian Orthodox priest, and he spent extra time catechizing our little community here. He's really an expert on the praxis of the ancient church and church history, highly educated, academic, but also very mystical priest. And he introduced us to the didache. I'm sure you're familiar with this, right? And it's for people who don't know, this is the church considers this to be basically an example of, if not the catechetical document or catechetical protocol, if you will, that the apostles were using to catechize the people in the early church. We're talking first century that this is from. And obviously there's no Bible. There's no Bible at the time. So there are some verses that are clearly things that the church was using that either were then became written down later, but you could tell that they're definitely there. There's already an oral tradition for sure at that time, but there's no Bible proper. And so it opens, and it's sort of the way that it frames, it's asking the question, like, what is the faith? Like when we see the ancient saints, they were taught the faith, right? Or we see this scene of in Acts where Apollos has come. I believe he's come to Corinth at this time. It's either Corinth or Ephesus, because that's where Aquila and Priscilla were. But he's come to Corinth and he's preaching a baptism, but he's only preaching the baptism of St. John the Baptist. And because he doesn't know the other one. And Priscilla and Aquila, appropriate to our conversation, because she's always mentioned first, which is interesting. Whenever they mention, right?
And
they were the ones
apostles,
who had
right?
They're apostles, and they were the first. Their house was the first church proper of the Gentiles, like in their house, right? So I think very appropriate to this conversation, right? But that they go and they instruct Apollos on the actual baptism, the Christian baptism, correct his error, basically, because he's only talking about the baptism of St. John the Baptist, which is covered in the Didache, the baptism, right? So this is, so we can sort of see that, like, okay, this is what's, even in Acts, they're talking about, there's already some catechism, so this is it. And of course, this document starts, and it's something that's weird that we don't hear it all that often in the church presented this way, but it's like, wow, this is the way that the apostles would have opened their idea of what is it that we believe. And it says there are two ways, the way of life and the way of death, but a great difference between the two.
I'm so glad you said that. I was just telling my son this, and I could not remember where it was from. I thought it was indication the way they have. I just kept going through the books. Okay. Say that line again, Cyprian, because it's a really beautiful way to start. It's like
yes, it is the opening words. There are two ways, the way of life and the way of death, but a great difference between the two.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say, what is the way of life? And this has been, it has been the most powerful thing to me, because it's like, wouldn't you want to know? And again, I've become obsessed with Priscilla and Aquila, and of course, they're wonderful. I mean, they're wonderful to think about, these two early saints and how devoted they were. And of course, when Paul goes to Corinth, he lives with them for a year and a half. He's making tents with Aquila, because Aquila is a tent maker. He finds a tent maker, so that's his work. Could you imagine a year and a half of St. Paul living with you, working with you on a day by? Could you imagine what you would walk out with? Right? I'm fascinated by
we
by
forget
them.
that's what the apostles had with the Lord. Like, it wasn't just what's in the gospel, but every day for 3 years,
Every day. So,
every day.
and this is, I think that when you see that, like, how did they understand it, and how were they communicating it to people who had no concept? Right? These are not Jews. These are Gentiles. These are pagans. Like, zero concept. You couldn't go to the Old Testament for them. Right? You couldn't. Now, Priscilla and Aquila, I believe Aquila was a Jew. I don't think Priscilla was. She may have been. I don't remember exactly. I know Aquila was definitely a Jew, but they're in a Jewish community, but they're preaching to the Gentiles, right? So how would you approach somebody? And it's like, well, there's two ways, the way of life and the way of death. And that's why I think that example of the cancer is a pretty good example, right? Because there are kind of two states of a cell, right? There's the state of life and the state of death. But it's not just death, like a cell can die. There's like a one that's like worse, where it's actually going on the way of death, to where this cell is not just dying. This cell is taking actions that is going to kill the whole body. Right? That this cell is growing and moving toward death, and it looks like death, but it's not dead. It's like it's the manifestation of an energetic death. It's actually death growing,
Hmm.
right? And so
Right.
it's a way of death. So we have a way of life when the body is like good to go, and then we have the way of death, and in the biology we see that we call that cancer. Because it's the body doing it on its own. It's not some external thing that's coming in. It's like the body actually pursuing a path towards death. And so this is the way to understand these two. Of course, I mean, this is a pattern. This is a pattern. We're part of it. And so, of course, there is going to be the sustainable, life-giving, the way that the spirit, a spirit, your spirit, is moving, and that motion and that pattern is going to mean sustained and long life. And then there's another one that's the cancerous route that is going to lead to the death of the entire body. And so when we understand the devouring mother as versus, so the blessed mother, clearly, right? She is the way toward life eternal. There's no question that she is the way of life in terms of the divine feminine. Well, I mean,
She gives birth to life. I mean,
she
literally.
gives birth to life. It's the person of life.
The
I
life,
am
yeah.
the way, the truth, and the life. She
Yeah.
gives birth to the life. So clearly she is the way of life. There's no question. Okay. But there is a way of death. As Christians, we understand there are two ways. There is not just one way. There are two ways. So that means that there must be an inversion, a cancer, a mode of behavior and operation, unlike her mode of behavior and operation, which was to hear the word of God and to keep it. There is another mode of operation that is the way of death. That is how we understand the devouring mother. Regardless of what we are going to use the term devouring mother, but the way to understand it, and now this should be obvious to Orthodox Christians that obviously there is this way must exist. If we're Orthodox and if we're like, well, the apostles understood that this way existed, but again, we try not to talk about it. We try not to focus on it because we don't want to look, but we need to see.
Right.
Just like we need to do I actually just went to the dermatologist like last week. I flew to Guam, went to the dermatologist, right? Why? Because I wanted him to take a look at my skin. You know, just do a check. I've got moles. I'm of mixed race. My mother had a melanoma when she got older. And he was like, yeah, you should do this every year. And I try. Right? Let us look. Let us look. Just real quick. We'll see what's going on, but we won't spend a lot of time, right? What I don't want to do, and the reason I do that is because I'm a bit of a hypochondriac and I don't want to go and obsess on which I have a tendency to do, obsess on every little thing, even though the dermatologist always says, oh, you're fine. The one who's the expert, right? Who has the training. I don't want to focus on that. So it's the same way that it's like we should be able to identify the devouring mother when we see it, but we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. So I hope that what we can do is just like identify what are those things that we would see. But I think maybe, hopefully, even after this conversation, we don't even need to, we've given a heuristic already where we could just identify it. Right? So the problem is not feminism. The problem is not feminism. Right? The problem is not transgenderism. Right? Again, like I said, those are just symptoms. Those are just like, oh, that spot looks it's doing some kind of weird stuff there, that spot. You know what I mean? But the real issue is that you've got a cluster of cells that have flipped to the way of death. And so we say, oh, abortion is bad. Well, why is abortion bad? Well, it's the way of death. Clearly, it's literally the way of death, because if everybody gets an abortion, we all die. Why is transgenderism bad? Not because they're degenerates and this and that, and you could say that, No, why is it? Because it's the way of death. Why? Because if everybody's a transgender, there's no more humans. That's how we know the heuristic of the way of life and the way of death. It's this real simple heuristic, and it's like this. If everybody did this, would human beings survive? If everybody believed this and everybody took this action, would human beings survive and thrive? If everybody did it. In other words, is it universal? Is it Catholic? Can this be a Catholic practice? Can this be a practice that every single person can adhere to and human beings still survive? That's the way of life. So, can every single person choose to be homosexual and only homosexual and the human species survives? No. Can every single woman, when she's pregnant, choose to have an abortion and the human species survives? No. Can every single person choose to be on fentanyl all day long and the human species survives? No. Can every single man decide that his only sexual satisfaction, or that the majority of his sexual satisfaction, or that he will spend 18 hours a day watching pornography and self-abusing? Can every single man decide to do that and the human species survives? No. Like, it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we can get ourselves totally distracted. We can get ourselves totally distracted with calling out degeneracy and signaling virtue and piety, as opposed to just getting at what we're talking about. There are two ways: the way of life and the way of death. That action that you're taking, what is that? Can you do that all day and you're going to be okay, you're going to survive, and the people around you are going to survive?
It's like Dr. Phil always says, how's that working for you? Yeah.
How's that working for you? How's that working for you?
Yeah.
Right. And this is where there is no monopoly on truth, because truth is a person. And he's for all of our salvation.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no monopoly. So it's like, yeah, you should see in even worldly individuals like Dr. Phil, when he's right, it'll be because it's oriented toward Christ.
Mm-hmm.
When he's telling the truth, he is oriented towards Christ because Christ is truth.
Right.
So I think in terms of, if we want to talk about the devouring mother, all you need to do is look at the things that would represent the actions that a mother would take. It's also, some people have called her the smothering mother. But look at the actions that a mother would take that would be to the detriment of the thriving. I like the word thriving, because it really it captures this idea of life broadly, holistically, right? And they have this idea of like children dying. This was a big thing in Romania after the communism fell. They would just like take babies from mothers and like put them in orphanages, and no one would touch them.
Right.
Like, if you don't touch a baby, they'll die from what they call failure to thrive.
Right.
Right. So it's like, oh wow, they actually need like the touch. They actually need physical touch, or their body will just like shut down. That's a mystery.
Right.
Right. But this is to say that there is a way that a mother behaves and lives that is so broad. Like, it's not a simple list of things. We don't even know the things. She doesn't know the things. Right? It's their instinct. They're the maternal instinct, which is given to her by God. And the maternal instinct is the way of life. And all of the things that we would see as the devouring mother or that cancer, the immediate response that we have to it is a disgust. And what do we say? How could a mother do that? How could a mother do that? What are we recognizing? That it's contrary to the maternal instinct. There's the top story in our newspaper today. And it's interesting. It's the top story is that a mother left her 18-month-old baby in a car strapped into the car seat, so parked in the parking lot of a gambling establishment so she could go in and gamble. Okay, you see the reaction you have? That's the reaction everybody has. Why do we all, there's nothing ideological there. That reaction didn't come from ideology. That reaction isn't cultural. You could go to any culture and tell them that, and every woman, and hopefully every man, but certainly every mother and every father would have the same visceral reaction. That's from God.
So how do you explain the mother that did it? Because I agree with what you're saying. However, as a person who, like, my family was really dysfunctional. I didn't have, things modeled. I became a mom and I didn't know what to do. So I was actively looking for the models. There are times when I actually had no idea how to respond well to a child. So what happened
Sure.
there? Because there's instinct, but there's something else going on, because some people are pushing the instinct down, or there's extreme selfishness is what I think it is, an idealization of themselves.
Well, it's being overridden. It's being overridden.
Mhm.
And I think it's pretty key when we look at, so if I was to tell you, and the only thing I told you, and let's not take this scenario, but the only thing I told you was, there's a mother. She left her 18-month-old in a car seat. And mind you, this is Saipan. I don't know what time of day it was, but it never gets below about 75 degrees here.
Yeah.
Right. So I hope it wasn't during the daytime. And I didn't even want to read the story because it would just bother me all day. Right. But if I told you a woman left her, just abandoned her child to go do something. Okay. Something. And then I said to you, what would you bet if you had to bet? No pun intended on this story. But what would you say was the thing that she went and did? What would be your give me three. What would be your top
I
three?
would say when parents drive home and the kid is sleeping and they think, oh, I'll
Yeah.
leave the kid there, let it finish its nap. Grocery store, like they somehow forgot the child in the grocery store parking lot when they went in, or dropping off at daycare, the parents switch. That happens a lot, it seems like. Those would be the three I
This
thought.
is let's say that these are not. So one of the things here is this is not inadvertent. That's one of the other pieces about this, right? This is not just somebody just totally being discombobulated or something like this. This is there's
Yeah, then
something that
it's
I'm
like
going to go
drugs.
do, and I'm going to act. There we
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Right. That's the first thing
Yeah.
that came to your mind.
Yeah.
Right. What would be another one you think?
Yeah, sex. Some kind of weird sex thing going on.
Why did I think about the same two things? Why
Because
were
it
those
would
my top
take
two?
some pretty disturbing psyche going on for you to do that if you did it on purpose,
And what did this woman do?
Gambling.
Gamble.
Yeah.
Okay. Drugs, sex, gambling, addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction. Where do addictions come from?
Yeah, they're demonic. And passions, disordered passions.
There you go. So this is very simple.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to the question is very simple. There is the way of life and the way of death. And remember, I talked about there's two teams playing, right? One team is wants you on the way of life, and it's as you walk the way of life, as you acquire the spirit of peace, thousands around you are saved. And as you acquire the spirit of chaos, thousands around you are damned. Right? So there's another team that wants you on the spirit of chaos, that wants you moving on the way of death. That's where it comes from. That's where all these things come from.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and then it's simple. If that's where they come from. So this woman is sick. The woman who did this, right? She's sick. She has a sickness, right? And that sickness comes from the demonic. If we have an Orthodox phronema and we look at her actions, and we just did it. as Orthodox people, we cannot see this as coming from somewhere other than the demonic in terms of what our worldview is and how we understand reality. And so if she's sick, and it's coming from the demonic, then we have a clear pathway to, if she will be saved, if she will be delivered from that, there's one who can deliver her. Right? And so again, it's like, yes, this is about a mother. This is about motherly instinct. But there's not a separation from the masculine. And for her, if she is to be saved, her conduit and her pathway to him is the mother of God, especially in this case. Right? Like, this is a woman who, her beseeching the mother of God is like, the mother of God is, for her, for all of us, she's there, but for her, she's waiting. Right. She's really, really like, please. You know, because I mean, she's the model. You know, if a mother asks, how do I interact with my child? There is an ultimate. What is my relationship to my child, and what should the relationship to my child be as a mother? I mean, we have the answer. And I think that there's this really, I don't know where I saw it, and I don't know what saint it was from, but it's you might even know, but it was just so deep for me. And it was only recently that I ran across it, and I had this feeling, but it was kind of like, there was someone who was asking, and they were asking, I don't know whether this was an elder or a bishop, but they were asking them, like, how can I, like, know if like I should do this or I shouldn't do this, if I should, like, do this thing or I shouldn't do this thing. And this elder or this bishop was saying, yeah, people come to me all the time and they ask me about these very specific things. So, Father or Geronda, I want to do this very like, should I go this and have this career path, or should I go here and have this career path? Like, should I go and do this with my child, or should I go and I do this with my child? Should I send them to private school, or should I send them into the public school? And I feel like there's a lot of that conversation, like in the orthosphere, that we spend a lot of time on that. And he said, really what you need to do is you need to pray, and you need to think about what it is you're going to do. And you need to say, can Christ follow me there? Can Christ go there? Like, imagine Christ is with you, because he is. And then be like, can he go with me there? Or is that someplace that he's not going to go? And I think the same thing with the mother of God is, even for as a man, it's even more powerful, I think, for the mother of God. Right? Because for me, it's like, wow, can I take her to this place that's like, I can't. I have too much, like, it's a mother, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's one thing if I'm going to take Christ, like, he battles demons. Not to say she doesn't battle demons, but she's a mom. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, there's some places I just can't take a mom. You would, and people say that, right? Would you use those words around your mother?
I've often thought we could fix the internet by putting more Russian grannies in the chats or something, you know?
Right. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Babushkas,
because we all shape up.
Babushkas serve an important cultural purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm so glad that you brought up the Russian grannies, right? Because, again, false dichotomy, but the divine feminine is also separated into three in a way that the masculine is not. The maiden, the mother, and the crone. Women have men don't have this. We have childhood and adulthood. And then, like, and even biologically, a man can continue to procreate into his 80s,
right,
90s. 100 never stops, right? So even biologically, God has only given us 2 phases: procreative, not procreative, right? That's it.
Hmm.
You can have babies now, you can't. These are our 2: childhood and adulthood. Women have 3. They have 3. And this has always been understood in spiritual practice: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. There's for people who are like, and if they're a little bit more materialistic, I would suggest this book changed my life. It's important for every woman to read this book, I think, but it's even more important for men to read this book, and husbands, right? And it's a totally materialist book, but it fits. But you'll be like, oh, this helps me to understand my role as a husband so much better. It's by a woman called Luann Brissenden, and it's called The Female Brain.
Oh.
And it's from maybe it was written, it's probably 20 years old, maybe more. But she was the head of the hormone like research clinic at Harvard, I believe. But she studied how the female brain changes, and also the endocrine system and the nervous system. And it's very different. And she studied men, and it's totally different. Totally different. And that women actually, even biologically, have 3 completely different phases, and their brain even changes. Right? But menopause is right there. Like, it's that's a thing. What is that?
I'm 47.
What
I've
is
been
that?
learning all about this. Like,
Right? So
why were we never told this? Yeah. It's a huge part of us.
Again, the reason why we're never told this is because we're making the dichotomy between women and men, that this isn't something that's important for men. And it's like, are you kidding me? What is Russian Orthodoxy, and what is Russia without babushkas?
Yeah.
What is Russian culture without babushkas? And what do we not have in the West? We have an unwillingness of women to become babushkas.
That's right.
They do everything that they can to never become the crone. And it's like, well, that's the way of death. That's cancer. Because your biology, the biology is there that you go through this. Why do you go through this? Why did God put this there? Or if you're an evolutionary biologist, which is just a BS artist, why did we evolve so that babushkas are they're a biological thing. A babushka has a phenotype.
Yeah.
No, they're in every culture that survives. They're in every culture that survives. Because, and we only see, the reason we see them in every culture is because all the cultures that survived had them. I guarantee you there were cultures that didn't have babushkas, and guess what? We don't see those cultures. Why? Because they're dead.
Yeah, that's not looking so good for us, because as you said, this is completely absent from modern day. We have Karens. That's the closest thing we have, but it's not the same. Completely not the same, right?
Well, completely not the same, because one of the things about babushkas is they aren't mothers. Karens are not behaving as mothers, and biologically they can no longer be mothers. They are objectively not mothers. They are something else, something very, very important. Right? Babushkas, grandmothers, there's been so much written on this too. Anthropologists, sociologists. Grandmothers are the storehouse of a culture, of the culture. Right? And we even see this in pop, like, even the wokes recognize it. Even the wokes who are trying to never get old, and who will be a 60-year-old woman trying to look like she's 30. But look, the right does it too.
Yeah.
How old is Laura Trump? Right? She's probably past menopause.
I think the classic example is
Right?
Madonna,
Well,
right? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
sure, but it's on
but
the left and the right.
it is.
They're both sides doing it. Look at Judge Jeanine Perot. Judge Jeanine.
I don't know who
That
that
ain't
is.
no Babushka. She is the she was this a big like court TV person that Trump named as, I think she's the New York district attorney now, U.S. attorney for New York. Right?
Okay.
But again, it's like Botox surgery,
Mhm.
breast augmentation, Ozempic, always in the gym. Let me post my picture of me, hot granny, hot grandma. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, I
These
do.
are
I did a whole segment on grandparents, and I covered this actually on Board No More over on Study of Stuff channel. But it was pretty disturbing that there's more pictures of hot grannies than old, mature women that we need because they guide the young women. They have a
the
perspective
way, yes.
that we don't
Well,
have.
they have to, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
really, that's where, when you ask the question of like, well, how do I relate to my child? Well, where does that information come from?
Comes from,
Babushka.
yeah.
It's from Babushkas. And even young girls look, like I was saying, even pop culture, Moana, the movie Moana,
Mhm.
right? Probably one of Disney's most popular, at least in recent memory, and they did the second one. How does Moana start? The grandmother telling the story of Maui and their people, and she's communicating. It's to the children.
Mhm.
It's the grandmother passing on the culture, right? And it's the grandmother who tells Moana, hey, go up in that hill and look at who our people really are, and there's boats in there. We were Voyager. Go look. Right? It's the grandma. What happens if there's no grandma? The island dies. If there's no grandma in the Moana story, nobody knows about Maui to even go find him, and no one knows where the boat is.
Which is what we have in America now. We have, because if people have grandmothers, they're not in relationship to them. And, I felt
Yes.
like our family was a little head of the curve in that we didn't interact with our extended family for good reasons, but, we didn't. So it cut off all those relationships, and you can't learn how to be an aunt or sister, mother, whatever, if you're not on the receiving end of that. And now it's
That's right.
gotten worse because now we're breaking down the nuclear family. Not just like 20% of the people, but like massive, over half of the people now are isolated and atomized, and
Well,
it's
let's talk
hard to
about
see a way
isolation
out.
and atomization. Let's talk about
Yeah, let's do
atomization
that.
and isolation and putting it right on the nose. What was COVID all about in terms of specifically who was isolated from the children?
The grandparents.
Specific.
Yeah.
On the nose. And a complete inversion, right? Because what
Mhm.
was the idea? We have to isolate the grandparents from the children because it will kill the grandparents. And it's like, oh, no. If you isolate the grandparents from the children, you kill everybody. Because that's the way of death.
So how do we rebuild from that? This feels like when this is sort of thing is lost, I don't wanna be, I try to be hopeful about these things. I keep coming back to Panagia, the saints, female monastics, the grannies we still have.
Mhm.
But what can people
Yes.
do?
Well, the thing is, it's not lost. It's not lost. It's not lost at all.
Mm.
Because because again, it's our instinct. Nobody has removed the instinct. You know how hard you have to work? You know how hard the enemy is working on a daily basis to get to get people to work against their instinct. You know how hard that is?
I do when you look at how much they've been working. I can look at the work. I've made a study of looking at the work, and it's a lot of work, so but here
and
we are.
and it's work. It's I think that there's the work we see, right? But I tell you, that's the limited hangout. That's the limited hangout, right? Because the enemy is not concerned. He's not, I mean, it's horrible, but his target is not that woman who's going in and gambling in Saipan. You know, like she's as we were talking about the soldiers,
Mm,
you know, in war, she's she got hit, she's getting hit by stray bullets. You know, she's hit by a stray bullet uh because there's warfare around her, right? Oh, no. The target is where it's always been. The target is in the church. That's the target, because
mm.
who is she going to turn? Who is she going to turn toward the way of death? Nobody. Who is she? She's nobody. Right? But, and this is again why I've left X. But wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be a nice target to have somebody with a nice Orthodox cross icon after their bio, and, you know, 5 to 10,000 followers on X? And wouldn't it be nice to get them turning towards the way of death in a way that they weren't even aware, because they don't even think about the world this way, that there is a way of life and a way of death? Wouldn't it
Mhm.
even be good if they were calling for other people to be killed? Wouldn't that be awesome? Oh no, they need to kill him, bury him 6 feet under, because they're a degenerate. So it's like, wow, that's even better. What about them calling for? They're not concerned about the woman who left her baby in the car, but that individual I'm talking about, you know, let's show them that baby getting left in the car, right? And let's let them make a comment, and let's let it build up, and let's nudge it a little bit until we've got that person calling for her to be executed, put away for life, and never able to see your child again, instead of calling
Yeah.
for Christ to rid her of the demonic influence that got her to do that.
Yeah, this is why I'm not on X. I spent,
Yeah.
less than a month, and it was like, yeah, no. It's a couple years ago. Just the internet is bad, but X is, something else. I don't know what it is. It's,
Oh, I know.
it's,
Yeah, the
it's
X stands for
upsetting to
hell.
see.
The X stands for hell. It's standing in for the word hell.
Yeah, that was my experience, yeah.
Yeah. So, you
And I
know,
think you're right. People
to
don't think in the
go ahead.
moment about choosing the path of life in that moment of this tragedy has happened. This is we're recording the day after Charlie Kirk was
Mhm.
killed. Very tragic, and tensions are high. You know, people are emotional. They don't think in the moment of, my response has to be of Christ. It has to be towards life every moment, regardless of how I feel. We have to embrace that. And, I was reading from, sorry, we're a little off topic, maybe, I don't know, but I
No,
was
please,
reading
no, it's
from
not off topic at all.
Metropolitan Augustinus, who's a bishop from
Mhm.
Florina from the, I think, 50s or 60s in Greece. And he was talking about the Lord's crucifixion and how
Mm.
he kinda drops you in the story, almost like a little guy on the Google map, and just shows you, like, the apostles saw the crucifixion, and it was dark for 3 hours. They thought this was the Messiah.
Mm.
They're completely devastated. They're completely disappointed. And then they see these guys over here laughing about it and
Mhm.
celebrating the Lord's death,
That's
you
it.
know? And it's like, I mean, Charlie, I'm not saying he's a Christ figure, but he is a Christian, And if we live as Christians, we're going to mimic the life of Christ, or we're not
Yes.
Christians. Yeah. And I just
Yeah.
saw that in him so much this morning in that reading. Like, he was preaching, love and listening, and he was killed tragically, and then people are celebrating. So it's upsetting. I shut it off if it gets to that point. I want my thoughts to be unclouded by a bunch of
Hold on one
voices.
second. I've lost you. There we go. I'm back.
Okay.
Yes. So I heard none of that, but I did hear I got the Charlie Kirk part, and I got that
Yeah.
that we will be called. And I think that there's an interesting aspect to this. There was a meme that I saw that was a quote from Charlie Kirk, who said, you can't kill a Christian. You can only something like you can only expedite them coming to Christ, or something to that effect.
Mhm.
And the same sentiment was echoed by his pastor and I think partner in Turning Point as well. So it is, and it's interesting because, one, the Lord says that this is what's going to happen to you if you're a Christian.
Mhm.
The history of the martyrs says that this is what's going to happen. The Beatitudes, are also basically saying that this is the life that you have as a Christian, that you're not going to win in a worldly sense, in other words, but you are going to win, right?
Mhm.
It's the czar. Do you take the heavenly kingdom or do you take the worldly kingdom, right? If it's the worldly kingdom, you die
Mhm.
on the battle today, right? But if it's the heavenly, or if it's the worldly kingdom, you live, right, and you get it, but you don't get the heavenly kingdom. If it's the heavenly kingdom, you die today on the battlefield, and so.
And blessed are you.
And you're blessed.
Like,
And I think this is the heuristic. Well, I think that this is how you know whether or not you yourself are a Christian, is that it is how you respond to that exact moment, right? Because are you, we see reading the lives of the saints is so important, right? And we see so many martyrs going to their death, thanking their executioners,
mhm.
blessing their legitimately. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to wear the
Mhm.
martyr's crown. Thank you.
I just read the life of Saints Adrian and Natalia. Speaking of married couples, right? And
Exactly.
she was Christian, he was pagan. He's in the court. He
Yeah.
sees people convert, right? And in the end, she is actually placing his limbs on the anvil for the executioner to crush them. She, like,
This
with
is day
love.
after day before yesterday, right? Something like that. 2 days
Uh,
ago?
I'm on
3
I'm on the
days
new
ago?
calendar, so I'm not sure. This
Okay, okay, okay.
couple weeks,
No,
yeah, for me.
I just read it.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's and she locked him out of the house when she thought he was an apostate. For for the record,
Right.
that's a different conversation. But
But this is
so
the I think you're bringing up the point, right? That the point is, these are the moments in which we see this is the litmus test. It's a
Mhm.
litmus test for you as a Christian, that if you say, "Oh, he was a Christian," and in the midst of, so either there's a few things here, right? That it's really the litmus test for, and it's for us to dig deep into ourselves, right? To where, like, so you said he was a Christian. I think that there's some people in the Orthodox Church who would say that's up for debate. But let's say that
not that I agree
he
with
is,
everything.
right?
I hate to put
Sure.
that caveat, but yeah,
And I'm not even gonna, I don't even think we need to go there. That's not the point that I'm making,
yeah.
right? I'm saying this is a litmus test for us, right? It's about
Mhm.
our reaction. And so it's like, okay, was he a Christian? If I say yes, he was a Christian. Okay. Was he in the midst of doing God's work? Right? Because he was in the midst of something. He was in the midst of
Mhm.
work, a ministry, right? That's literally, I mean, it was a ministry. You look at that,
Mhm.
that's a ministry, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, was his ministry to the service of God at that moment that this thing happened to him? And if I say yes, right, then as a Christian, my reaction has to be glory to God for all things. If my reaction is vengeance, which was the reaction of Donald Trump in his talk when he got up there, not direct vengeance, but we will be going after not only the people who did this, which should be because
Mhm.
justice is required, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But also all the organizations that had ever called Charlie Kirk a Nazi, because that's what led to this happening. And it's like, no, blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. If Charlie Kirk was a Christian and Charlie Kirk was doing God's work and people were calling him a Nazi, Charlie Kirk is blessed by that.
Mhm.
Those people blessed him. And if they did it to such a degree that it made someone operating under demonic influence martyr him and give him a crown of martyrdom, then he is blessed. And then that is blessed. Then that whole thing is blessed. If Charlie Kirk is a Christian, and if the work that Charlie Kirk was doing was the work of God, then the whole thing is blessed. Glory to God for all things. Now that is scandal.
Mhm.
That is scandal to the world. People are watching your channel right now who are saying that they are Orthodox Christians are going to be completely scandalized by what I just said.
But the cross is a scandal. It is foolishness to some people in the world.
Thank you.
And to those
Thank
of
you.
us that are being saved, it is the wisdom of God, right? I mean,
To those of us who are Christians,
yeah.
the cross is the wisdom of God. Right? And
Yeah.
so I think that this is the moment when those, and I believe that the vast majority of people who would be triggered by that, the vast majority, like I can understand and I know the turmoil that even hearing what I just said, if
Mhm.
they haven't already turned this off. If they haven't already turned this off, because the emotional turmoil, and that is the demons. Christ doesn't give you turmoil like that. When he convicts you, you lean in. When he convicts you, you lean in. When you're at liturgy, when you're at services, and a homily is delivered by the priest that hits particularly deep, and you say, "Oh, that's me. Lord have mercy, that is me." Do you walk out of the church or do you lean in? Right? That's it. And so then you have to decide, is what I and what we have just said about this situation and the Christian response to this situation, is that in line with the teachings of the church? Have you or I said anything that is not completely in line with the teachings of the church and and Orthodox theology? Okay. So if what we've said is in line with the teaching of the church and Orthodox theology, and what's happening inside of somebody who hears that is incredible turmoil, that's the demons. That's the demons. And so then if you reject that and then go on to serve whatever that thing is, whatever that temptation is, whatever that passion is, whatever that desire that is coming from inside of you, you're not serving Christ. Like, we have to understand it that way.
Mhm.
But we don't really have another way. We don't have another way of understanding it.
There's two paths, as you said. There's two ways. We're
There's a
either
way
with
of life
Christ
and a
or
way
we're
of death.
not. There is no neutral path. There's never a neutral.
There is none.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. And it's not gonna feel good because it's the cross. Like that's the I think, you know, this is the peace this is truly the peace for men, where men can learn from women, where the divine masculine can learn from the divine feminine, right? And it is all in that, the womb that bore you and the breast that nursed you, right? Because yes, that is a sacrifice, and that is pain, and that is discomfort. And women have that in a way that men are not going to have at the visceral level,
Mhm.
right? But that's not what the true cross that was born was. The true cross was to hear the word of God and to keep it. To hear the word of God and to keep it. Because to assume that she had zero turmoil, she probably had a lot less than most everybody else, because she was very pure, very purified at that point. But to believe that she had no turmoil, well, Christ himself had turmoil in the garden at Gethsemane.
Mhm.
He's praying and sweat is coming. He's praying, Father, take this cup from me. If it be your will, that's turmoil. That's discomfort. And he's God. So she probably had some too. And so it's like, these men, they want to go to that. There's your war. There's your war. It's this moment right now. This moment right now is your war. This moment right now, to where you say, oh, the hardest thing right now is to say glory to God for all things and mean it. There could be nothing harder than that. It would be so much easier to go out and shoot somebody and kill them, and even get killed myself, or hurt or bleed. That would be so much easier right now than to say glory
Mhm.
to God for all things. But the only way that this is solved and we get through this is glory to God for all things.
Yeah, and it also reminds me of the apostles in the garden as the Lord is being betrayed, right? We have a new icon of
Pulls the
this on our
sword.
wall. Yeah. Yeah, it's the icon of the whole scene is very chaotic. You've got the soldiers and the swords on one side. You've got Judas kissing the face of the Lord, and then all the disciples, swords drawn. And
Mm-hmm.
the only figure that's total peace is the Lord, and it's the Lord looking at you, right? Amongst all this
Oh, wow.
chaos and betrayal. And it's such a moving icon, because that's what we want to do. We want to fight. Like we want human justice is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have human justice and divine justice. I don't think. I don't think that happens.
And the manifestation of this with the devouring mother. So this is how we go full circle, right? So the manifestation of this with the devouring mother is that it's the same. She has the same turmoil, but her turmoil is the turmoil of the mother of God. To look at her son on the cross and to still glorify God. She's a human being. She's a human being.
Mhm.
An angel comes, tells you you're going to bear God, gives you a virgin birth, a virgin, to where everybody's thinking you're lying, right? You got to bear that. You bear the Lord. You watch him through his ministry. You watch people say these things about him, but you know who he is. So not only is he your son, of course you love him, but he's God. And he's perfect. And they put him on a cross. And they're hurting him. And they're killing him. And they're laughing about it. And still, she stays to save mankind. She doesn't turn and say they're not worthy. Were anyone to reach out to her and beseech her to pray to her son on their behalf, she would do it.
Mhm.
If they pray out earnestly, no matter what they've done. That woman who left her kid in the car, right? But the devouring mother, no, you're not going to the cross. She doesn't let Charlie, you can't go out in front of those people. You got to do these on Zoom. Because what if something happened to you? One of the interesting things that I saw that was so interesting, because they are the manifestation of the devouring mother, that as I was flipping through with the Charlie Kirk thing and watching the mainstream MSNBC, CNN, and all of that, as they were reporting on this, they kept saying over and over and over again, but there was no security. Why was there no security? They were interviewing people and they were like, but was there security? Somebody was like, well, I bought a ticket, but nobody checked tickets. Just everybody just came. But security, why was there security? Why wasn't there security? Shouldn't there have been security? There was no security. And it's like, that's the devouring mother. There's a reason there was no security. Because if Jesus didn't have security, you just brought it up. He said, sheath your sword. I don't need security. This is blessed, what's happening right here. I don't need security. The devouring mother is like, security. We need security. That was COVID. Overabundance of it. Too much. Well, but if you have all that security, the thing can't happen. The thing can't happen that is to the glory of God if you have all that security.
Yeah.
You're preventing the cross.
I could talk about that for an hour in parenting and the way we make the world so safe for children in a way that it impedes their growth. You can't get a driver's license as easy as you used to. You can't work like you used to. I could talk for an hour about that. So, yeah, that's spot on. And I've noticed it's often about control. It's kind of framed in security, but it's really control, even in a mother and child situation. And if you're a mother, you should want the best for your child. You should love your child not in a way that idolizes the child or yourself as a mother, but to love is to give your life for them. So it doesn't matter how I feel. It's like I have to, whether it's have to give you a little spanking or I have to do this thing I don't want to do because that's what you need. That's what love is. It's what the mother does.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way of life.
That's the way of life.
And because it is in suffering that there is growth. All growth is through suffering. There can be no growth without suffering. It always hurts. It always hurts to grow. But the role of a mother, but especially not a mother is one thing because she does have those maternal instincts, right? And she is going to, I see it in my own wife, right? And how we temper each other's discipline. And it's so needed, right? But also I can tell those moments when she's like, she backs off and she's like, well, your father's dealing with it now, right? That it's like, okay, right? Okay. But it's this interplay. But also what I see is that I think that our children, for the most part, I always question it, but I think that our children are, for the most part, well-disciplined. Interestingly enough, their teachers and their coaches always compliment on how good of children and well-disciplined of children they are when they're not around us. And I'm like, are you talking about my They're like, oh, she's a delight. Are you kidding? And I'm like, you're talking about my daughter? What are you talking about? Who is this child? Right? But it's like, maybe that's a good sign. But the other thing that I also see is that I know our children are infinitely comfortable around us, right? Even post discipline, that there is not a shred of fear about us. And I think there's something intrinsic about that they know, like that's what love is, right? And I think that we could sometimes worry that if we allow our children to suffer, that somehow there will be some kind of blame or something like that. And it's like, bro, it's actually the reverse.
It's the reverse. Absolutely.
It's the reverse. Talk to men who have overbearing mothers and
Mhm.
see if there isn't resentment. It's interesting because Milo Yiannopoulos was just recently on Candace Owens. I only listened to
Mm.
maybe about the first 20 minutes, but I thought it was really powerful because he was talking about how coming to Catholicism, I mean, granted it's Catholicism, but how he seems to be coming to it, and how he has had a lot of revelations about, the genesis of his own homosexuality and perhaps the genesis of more homosexuality, but he did just keep bringing up overbearing mother,
It's a huge
as
problem.
like
Yeah.
a key. Even more, he brought it up as even more than like being abused. He was like, that's
Mm.
definitely a thing. And like that will definitely do it. That will definitely disorder you and kick you over to this side. But he was like overbearing. He just kept overbearing mother, overbearing mother, overbearing mother. And so if we want to talk about like, okay, so there we go. Here's the degeneracy, right? Here's the degeneracy that you want to talk about. And it's the trans. Well, where's all this trans stuff coming in? You look at these celebrities and they talk about, well, the mother has somehow convinced the child that they're trans.
Mhm.
It's always the mother. It's never, you don't hear this from the fathers, are not being like, the fathers, if anything, are beaten down by the wives.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they're going along with it and accepting it, or becoming trans themselves, right? Like Bruce Jenner,
Mhm.
right? So the control, the overbearing and the control, right? And so it's like, well, what's the solution? So it sounds like to me, like when I see this whole thing, I'm like, man, the devouring mother, she's like the genesis of all this chaos, in the same way that the mother of God, the blessed mother, is the genesis of life itself.
Mm.
Right? So the
Right.
cancer is coming from the womb of the devouring mother, so to speak. Which, by the way, the whole thing about her womb is the devouring mother never lets the child out of the womb, which is going to it has to be
Mhm.
born, otherwise it's going to die. When it's
Right.
time for it to be born, it has to be born, otherwise it dies. If you force it to keep it in the womb, it dies and you die. You both
Mhm.
die. Right? So the devouring mother is like, it's so, you can see how it is such the inverse, and how our theology teaches us, right? How it teaches us, like, because so much is about the matrix, which means womb,
Mm. I didn't
right?
know that's what that meant. That makes sense
The
though,
word
like
matrix
matriarch. Okay,
means
yeah.
womb,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
And so it's interesting when Andrew Tate says the matrix is out to get me.
Yeah, that puts it in a different light.
Oh, you see,
Yeah.
but it's all
You know,
it's go ahead.
yeah, I don't wanna make this about me,
Go ahead.
but I've
It's
noticed
about
that
both.
when I'm online when I'm online and I'm interacting maybe with some young men that have some issues, I've noticed there's, like, this aggression towards me, and after I heard you, I went, "Oh, they think I'm like their mother." They're, like,
Yes.
painting because I'm an older woman, right? I probably am their mother's age. It's like, "No, no, no. I actually want you to thrive. I'm not here to, like, be a hall monitor or whatever." Like, my sons, I taught them to go out and I'm gonna brag for a minute. My 18-year-old, like, built his own house.
Yes.
Like, they can do stuff, Like,
You shall
they're
know them
awesome.
by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits.
And their dad. I mean, their dad taught them everything. I'm just saying that's not who I am. Like, I want the young men to go and to do stuff, and I think it might help the young men to think about that with the women in their life. They've gotta have some woman in their life who's a healthy, blessed mother archetype that they
Mhm.
can maybe heal some of that relationship with.
Mhm. Well, again, this is the babushkas.
This is the
This is
Babushkas.
the babushkas,
Or the
right?
Yagas, if you're the
Because
Greeks out there.
exactly, exactly. Because you look at a marriage and you look at how, if when we're following the way of life, how important of a figure, if everything is in order, is the wife's mother. How important it's, well, both of them for sure. Both of them for sure. The wife's mother and the husband's mother, but for different reasons. Right? The husband's mother, because she can both give him correction but also validation. Right? Because there's a female validation that he's not, when things are in order, that he's not always going to be able to get from his wife, and it's the validation of him just being a man. Just
Like
doing
I
the
just did
things
with
that
my
he needs
son.
to
Like
do as a
my son
man.
is awesome and he can do these
Yeah.
things. And
That's exactly right. And in some ways, he shouldn't get that from his wife, because that's his responsibility as a man to her.
yeah,
You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Like, she's
Yeah, I
there
wouldn't
to
say that
lift
to my
him up in it.
husband.
Right. You would help him. You would assist him in it. You would work with him. You're on his team, but you're not his cheerleader.
Yeah.
But men don't just need teammates, they need cheerleaders. If we didn't need cheerleaders, there wouldn't be cheerleaders in sports. If it didn't actually help the team win, it wouldn't be universal. That there would be women cheering. And not only that, any young man who played sports knows how important it is that his mother is there watching him. And that she tells him how wonderful he played. It's why we have like team moms.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
We need it's crucial. And this is actually, I will tell you, this is the biggest problem with men. They don't have cheerleaders. No man can thrive without a cheerleader. This is the one thing I could say about my mother, and I'm even getting goosebumps. Me and my brother, and we are high achievers. Oh, what a cheerleader. For all her flaws, for all the things that we had an incredibly dysfunctional family. Incredibly dysfunctional family. On many levels. And she learned a lot through her life and whatnot. But what a cheerleader. Almost to the point where I was like, would you stop? Would you just stop? You're embarrassing me, Mom. You're embarrassing me, Mom. Like, you want your son to, oh, it's so important, mothers, that you cheerlead your son to the point about his real, not about fake things, about real things.
About real things.
About the real things that he's done that you see, that maybe other people don't see, that you see. And get him to the point where he says, Mom, please stop. You're embarrassing me. Do it. Do it. Because everything before Mom, stop, you're embarrassing me is nourishment.
That's so good, Cyprian. I can totally see that in my nephew. I can see that in my nephew too. You know, he was the typical kind of young man, was struggling a lot in school because school is designed for girls and other reasons, right? And he got out in high school. He's a little overweight, just no self-confidence at all. But my sister just all those years poured that into him. And just eventually he just flipped. He works out and he's healthy and he's reading all these great books and married, kids, like the whole thing.
That's it.
And I really think it's his mom doing that for him. Not
How
telling
could
him
it not
he
be?
can't. Yeah, not telling him to live at home forever, but just, you can do it. And he did it.
But I think that this is, so now I think we're really digging in, right? Because now we've come full circle to this dichotomy and me saying there's not a separation between the two. There's not a separation between that good man that you see and his mother. The good man that you see is the product. She's giving birth to that man. Right? And on the other side, right, the wife's mother. is so crucial when things are ordered, because she is the one that tells her to tone it down and appreciate him, while at the same time taking the burdens that she has of motherhood off her at every opportunity and telling her, go take care of yourself as a woman. You're not just a mother. You're a woman. Let me take the kids so you and your husband can go out. Let me watch them, and you go get your hair done. Go get your nails done. Go to the gym. Go hang out with your girlfriends. Go do something. I got these little babies. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in those moments that she also, because that's when she's going to take the role, because she needs them all to herself too. Because she's going to teach them. She's teaching them. That's when she's imparting. That's when they're going to learn the things. That's when they're going to learn the food and the stories and who their family is and who their mother is and all of these. And they're going to develop that relationship. And that's when they're going to develop a confidant. You could tell me things that you can't tell your parents.
But
If you ever need anything, come to me.
Yeah,
They
children
need it
need
so
that.
badly.
And they need to hear the same thing their parents are telling them from somebody else too. Like grandma is
every
not gonna, a good grandma is not gonna go against what the parents are saying, right? She's gonna help the child to understand the parents and that they're acting out of love, right?
And what happens if every woman in society decides she's not going to be a grandma?
I guess we don't survive.
What happens to your society? We're dead.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
We're dead. We're dead. Right? And so these things are simple when you see them. When you see them, there's nothing complex. That's why I was telling you, philosophy, that stuff, I can't stand it. And we're going to make up some new, let me make up some new jargon about this little symbol over here and how we're doing the pedagogical blah, blah, blah. What are we talking about? We're talking about grandmas, man. We're talking about why we need grandmas. Like, it's really that simple. We don't have grandmas being grandmas. And because we don't have grandmas being grandmas, we don't have mothers being mothers and fathers being fathers and husbands being husbands. And the kids are growing up malformed. Period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do want to interject here. Little shameless plug. Another video I have is a Siberian's grandmother letter about confession, and it's a conversation the grandmother has with the granddaughter, and it is one of the most beautiful things. I'll try to repost it under this video, but you see the grandmother lay out so gently for the granddaughter, like how to go to confession and like how to see your sins, right? And says at one point, selfishness is like, well, the sugars are expensive, and for a long time, you're the only one taking sugar. Did you not notice your mom wasn't taking sugar in her tea? And the girl gets ashamed. She's like, I didn't say it to shame you, love. No one cares about the sugar. But I'm showing you something, right? And this is the value of a pious granny. It can't be understated.
Very true. It's very true. Yeah, a friend of ours here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, sorry. I was going to say, I think they might be the least valued person in society. Might. I think when we have the whole Karen thing going on, they might, because people think of old ladies now as
Karens are an inversion,
right? Yeah. Like the good grandmother, she doesn't exist almost at this point. She's hard to find. So hard to find.
Well, that's a culture that's about to die.
So what do people do if you don't have a grandma? Do you go find one? That's what I did. But what do people do?
For sure. For sure. I think that the first thing is simply to just see. To just see and to just value. And to just communicate the value as we're doing here so that people can see. Because I think that no matter whether this isn't even an Orthodox conversation, because the value of grandmothers is not Orthodox. It is completely Orthodox, right? No, because it's the way of life. But it's not like some specifically Orthodox Christian thing, because the value of grandmothers is, as you said, it's in every single culture that survives. Every single culture that survives. If you see a culture that doesn't have it, that culture's dead man walking. Right? So the first thing is, if you want to salvage your culture, well, look, I mean, we know that it's in the church, right? That's where the salvation lies.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
just saying
So
practically as a family, what do you?
yes. So I think here's the thing. We can often want to give some like checklist of like
Mhm.
what are there's a temptation always to do that. Like there's a temptation, and I'm gonna try to keep this away from anything mystical in this case, but I'm gonna say that like even if I give somebody a checklist, if their intention is to check off the checklist, like we get like what you would call like mission creep,
Yeah.
or it doesn't actually like solve it. It becomes bureaucratic,
Right.
and then like your culture still dies because you're like, no, but I'm checking off. It's idiocracy, where they go, why are you watering the plants with Brawndo? Well, because it's got electrolytes. It's what plants need. And it's like, wait a minute. And so you're like, no, we got to check off this list. It's so important that we check off this list of things. And it's like, no, bro, it's not about the list. It's about how do we get grandmas.
Right.
Like even I don't know the list. Maybe this list is wrong. And it also presents a situation where it's like, maybe this list is for today, but tomorrow there needs to be something added or something taken away or whatever. But if you're so obsessed about, well, but we didn't check this, and this happens to people so often, I see it all the time, but we didn't check off this. Yeah. But it's not about checking the thing off, dude. The reason we put it on there in the first place is so that we could get more grandmas. And now that's not going to work. So we need to take it off and put on the thing that we now know will get us more grandmas. Right.
This is the issue of why we don't have an Orthodox curriculum, by the way, because there is no perfect Orthodox curriculum. It will never exist. You have to be an Orthodox teacher in your own heart and soul, and then your curriculum's Orthodox. That's how you do it.
And well,
but that doesn't
the
sell.
curriculum is clearly, we're talking about the curriculum.
Yeah.
Right. The curriculum. Look, there's no curriculum that could have produced that letter.
That's right.
Of the grandmother to her granddaughter. There is no curriculum that you could ever design that the result of that curriculum, the fruit of that curriculum, would be that letter. And yet that letter is exactly what is needed. Right? Yeah. So let's talk about the things that are actually practical.
Okay.
Right? Actually practical. So what is always actually practical is to figure out what is the most important thing and to orient toward it. So right now we're talking about what is the most important thing, and we've already identified the most important thing is life. Because that's Christ. As he tells us, he is life. Which is also truth. It's a truth. It's an equal. Truth equals life equals Christ. They're equivalents with each other. They're the same thing, the same concept, the same idea. Right? They're just, again, they're distinctions without a difference. Just like my hand and my foot.
Right.
So it's about value. And like we've basically done it. We've done the practical thing in this conversation. Because there's people, if they've continued listening, if they stuck around, right? After I dropped the bomb into the conversation and it exploded. If they've stuck around, right, then they are probably, chances are, because it's not something that we in our culture think about very often, they're probably like, oh yeah, this grandma thing is kind of really important. Maybe they're old enough that they, like I would say I'm old enough, I'm 47. It was still kind of like the grandma, like I had grandmas who were like that. Like what I'm describing is I had grandmas like that. Right?
Me too.
And it was like, yeah, it was my grandma who took me to church. That's true for grandmothers are, I mean, we have a Russian friend here, woman, who we were sitting talking about Orthodoxy. And she was like, yeah, my parents never took me to be baptized. But I would go out to Siberia. She's from Vladivostok. I would go out to Siberia to my babushka, like for a couple of weeks, to help with like the harvest, and it was actually her that took me. Even my mom didn't know. She didn't even tell my mom. Like, she took me to get baptized, and then it was her that would take me to church. And
Very
she's
common,
telling me this.
very common
Yeah, oh, so common.
in Russia. Yeah.
And so it's like, whoa, okay, wow, saving the grandmother is saving the child, right?
Mhm.
This is so it's like it's at every level of analysis that it's like we are disordered in the most simple ways. I think that that's really the
Mm.
practical thing. The practical thing is like we're not disordered in a way where you need to write a 70,000 word blog about, the decline of the West and how that was affected by, what happened with Byzantium, and then we had the gold standard that was removed, and then you did all
Mhm.
blah blah blah, and that's it's not, no, dude. It's not even about that. We're disordered in ways that are like manifest in your life that that you're that you, as like if it's a woman, that you are thinking about growing older with fear and trepidation. Like that you are thinking about moving
Mhm.
into that period of your life and that you are raging against it to do anything to prevent it, rather than leaning into it as your martyrdom,
Mhm.
right? And that it's like, no, now I can really serve Christ. And how blessed is it that I can play that role and my husband can't play that role. He'll play a different role. He'll play a different role, right? And it's a very important role, but it's not that one.
Mhm.
This is a one only I can play, And it's like that. That. That is how you save your culture. It sounds so like it's not what we want. It's not the answer that we
No.
want.
Well,
We
no,
want a
we
complex answer that's got this glory in it, and we get to do all this
Right,
organizing and
right.
all this stuff. It's not.
No, but it's interesting that you bring up disorder because, I don't know, the last month in particular, this idea of
Mhm.
disordered life is coming up everywhere for me. And we already know, like, in our theology, the passions are disordered desires. Like, that's what they are,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And whenever there's some movement in me that I can feel is not right, it's stemming from some disordered.
Yeah.
And, I do a lot of the, like, very practical, like, being careful about what your kids should watch on TV. Like, that's a big thing I think parents should do. But ultimately, it does go back to disordered. Like, what are you trying to do with your life? Like you said, are you on the path to life or the path of death? You keep pouring life into your kids every day, or are you pouring things that are putting them on the other path? That's really what it is. But I
Mhm.
don't know why people seem to need, the really obvious things. Don't take mushrooms,
Yeah.
don't give your kid a phone, don't watch porn. Like, it is a checklist, right? It's a pretty bare bones
Mhm.
checklist, but that feels like where we're at with people.
But the checklist doesn't solve it. Because the thing is you could
Yeah,
do all of
I
those
agree though.
things, but
Yeah.
if you're disoriented, the devouring mother will do all those things.
Yeah, you're
That's the
right. And
most
we see a
important
lot
thing.
of that. Actually, we see a lot of
Yeah.
that, I think.
So
Yeah.
it's none of those
Mhm.
things. Like it's those things if those things are done from an orientation toward Christ. If they are done for
Mhm.
any other reason, then they are not. I mean, it's the same, but this is like, man, everything is always, the truth is always on every level and all things, right? So it's the
Mhm.
same thing that especially young men coming into the church who will ascribe virtue to what my father would call, he wouldn't say it about the church, but he would say it about sports. He used to refer to the trappings of sports, right? And he would say it's
Mm.
like when we would talk about what the colors of the uniforms were, or what type of football helmet we were using this year, or what the best cleats to buy were, he would say that's the trappings.
Yeah.
That's the trappings. And there's nothing in that, right? Because the real, what you're here to do is about like, it's what's in here. And it doesn't matter you could be barefoot. You could have nothing. And maybe that would be better for you at the end of the day. Don't focus on that at all. But it's the same thing, young men where they will get, what chanting, right? Or they want to talk about they get real obsessed with incense and the layout of how the icons are and all of this fasting. Oh, I'm going to get real big on the fasting. And I'm like, brother, incense, candles, icons, fasting. I did all that in the occult magic. You summon demons with the same thing. Go read Aleister Crowley.
Don't go read Aleister Crowley, guys. But I get your
right.
point.
Fair enough. It's this. If one were to read Aleister Crowley,
there you go.
You would see that before a black mass, it's going to be the exact same prescription that you have in terms of fasting as the church gives us before liturgy.
Really? Wow.
And so it's like there's no fasting. It's not the fasting. It's that you are taking action specifically oriented toward Christ and his worship. And that you are making that sacrifice to Christ. It's not about sacrifice. You can sacrifice to demons. But that what you are doing is oriented towards Christ. And so I think that that's the thing, that it's like, seek to orient toward Christ. And it's like, is that going to manifest as you not giving your kid a phone? Maybe. Maybe maybe it does for you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's why we have Fools for Christ. Like, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't for you. But the key is that you are interrogating and that your action is to serve Christ. So like, how can I serve you? This is the way of life. I have a responsibility to my child. You participated in the creation of this life. You are participating in my marriage. You are participating in my home. You are participating in this child with me. I am oriented towards you. You are the king. You are my leader. I am every day concerned with serving you more than serving myself. Okay. Here's the thing that I'm about to do. And then that heuristic. Can Christ come with you? Can Christ come with you on this? Now, obviously, there's some things that are just like, clearly, we don't even need to, like, taking mushrooms. We don't even need to talk about that. Because that's the demons. Christ can't come.
Yeah. Right. Right.
We don't even need to mention that. Right? Well, let's mention, let's go out and slit somebody's throat for no reason. No, we're not. Wait, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Right? Go burn down a school for no reason. Christ he's not coming with you on that mission. So we don't even need to talk about that, right? It's the things that are like, well, but what are you asking of me? And I think that what's the most important thing is like, I don't know. Right? That's the first thing. Like, I don't know. There's this thing. I'm conflicted. It's not obvious whether you could come with me or not. And it's actually like, it's actually that draws you closer to Christ. Because what do you have to do to get the answer? You have to move closer to Christ to get the answer. In prayer, in confession, in services, in discussion with your spiritual father or godparents.
Yeah, and I think this is why the modern Greek elders are so important, because they really exemplify the freedom that you're talking about. And I think people I attended a Greek monastery, and I think people maybe look at Greeks as being lax, and some are. You're gonna have lax people in every church, but What I really see in the Greeks is this freedom that you're talking about, that whatever Christ wants, like it's not about a checklist, it's not about a certain set of rules or doing things just right. There's just total freedom. It's a relationship of love and of um, trying to be with Christ, and no matter what the situation is. And I don't know that I've seen that anywhere else like I've seen it in the Greek church, in America and in Greece.
Mm.
St. Porphyrius being,
Well,
I
I
think,
mean,
probably the
yeah,
pinnacle of that.
it is if Christ is a person for real, right? Which he is, then that's the only thing that you could expect. Like if you were being led by Christ and not a book or a checklist or an
Or fear.
ideology or something on paper, or well, that's yourself,
Mhm.
right? Or yourself or
Mhm.
some other person, right? If you are being led by Christ, and if he's here, and if he has a relationship with you, and if you can go to him, again, that's why there's no curriculum. Because he's just like, you don't need a curriculum when the master professor is
That's right.
already standing in front of the class.
You don't need the Bible if you have the Lord in front of you, like the apostles did, you know?
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
or
Christ is the
like Saint Mary,
fullness.
or like Saint Mary of Egypt did, or
That's
like
right.
Saint Mary of Egypt did, right? Because she says to Saint Zosimus, I've never read a book, I've never read scripture, nor have I ever had it read to me. But the Spirit of God, which is alive, makes a man wise.
Mm.
Because she was quoting scripture to him. Are you've read scripture? Never read it. Spend 25 years with Christ and in the desert in prayer, and yeah, it's not like he's going to say something different than he said to everybody else. It's the same guy. No, he said it to me too. Have you read scripture? No, he said it to me too.
Right. Wow.
And I think that's the practical thing, is it's like he's standing in front of you to teach you. Just lean in.
Well, Cyprian, we've gone 2 hours. That sounds like a really excellent place to stop. I appreciate your time. Where can people find you online?
Nowhere now.
Glory to God.
Maybe my YouTube channel.
You've
I
got
left
some
my
really great
YouTube because at
interviews.
least well, there you go. Yeah, there's a lot of interviews. So
Yeah.
just go and search my name somewhere. You'll find it. Google.
All right, Cyprian. Well, thanks so much for being here, and
Thank you.
God bless everyone.